1-16,359, Michael Cox, 154 Oakside Drive, Smithtown, New York. Location, west side of Oakside Drive, 2,976 feet north of Landing Avenue, Smithtown. Property zoned R43. Request, modify condition number 2 of decision dated September 14th, 2011, which states, prior to the issuance of any building permits, the applicant shall grant a permanent access easement to the town over the land extending from the southern boundary of the cemetery to Oakside Drive in accordance with the attached plan prepared by the Planning Department and dated August 15th, 2011. This land shall not be regraded or cleared with the exception of the clearing and grading necessary for the town to construct an access path to the cemetery. No structures shall be placed in this easement.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, my name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. Some time ago, as David indicated, this board was kind enough to grant us a few variances, probably more than a few, with respect to this property. It's a kind of an odd-shaped piece of property. One portion of it fronts on the Nessequag River, but also, if you can look at the site plan, almost in the middle of the property is a cemetery. And because there's a cemetery there, in negotiations with the town and specifically the planning director, Frank DeRubius, he wanted an access way from that area that's shown on the map as a natural area to the cemetery. Even though there's been an access way there for years right next door, he wanted to make sure that there was access to the cemetery. And the board, as you can see, one of your conditions was that there'd be no grading and no clearing. There hasn't been any grading or clearing, but you also said no structures. Well, my client mistakenly thought that structures meant buildings, sheds, that type of a structure. However, he did construct a fence. Well, it's really not a fence, it's a wall. It's a stone wall, I think approximately 2 foot high or so. And if you look at it, it doesn't enclose or create an obstacle to get to the cemetery because there's ample space on the side of it, which is where, if the town ever does put in an access way, you know, that's where the access way to the cemetery will be. Now, it's a decorative wall. It doesn't enclose anything. It looks like part of the landscape. So we asked the board to waive that condition solely to the extent that there is a fence as shown on the survey. We don't think it would be a detriment to the nearby properties. Again, it's a beautiful wall. It's made out of stone. It's not any kind of a wooden structure. Whether the benefit sought can be achieved by some other method, well, we built the wall, so the only alternative would be to tear it down, and it would really be a shame because it is a nice addition to that area. And the rest of the area remains natural. Even though my client owns the property, he can't do anything with it. Whether the request is substantial, well, we don't think so in this case. He didn't wall off the entire property. Again, it's just a decorative wall, and if you've gone there and saw it, it really is quite nice. Whether the proposed variance will have any environmental effect, we think not. Again, it runs out, it meanders across that natural area and stops before it closes on the boundary line. So we don't see it as any type of environmental effect. Was the difficulty self-created? Yes, it was. He built it, but he really built it um, uh, without the consideration that this fence is a structure, or this wall is a structure, like you would think some sort of a building, cabana, and the like. So we asked the board for its favorable consideration. We've resolved other matters with the town. We've gone to the district court, and we settled that matter there. So now it's in your hands to finally resolve this. So we ask the board for its favorable consideration.
Planning?
The planning department recommends that you treat this as you would as though it weren't built yet. And I would suggest that if it weren't built yet, this is the kind of thing that you would approve. I mean, it's very small. It doesn't stick out. It doesn't seem to cause any environmental damage. So using Mr. Tramarko's wording, I think, we would recommend that you approve or modify the condition to the extent that the structure, that the wall currently exists.
Thank you. Gentlemen?
No question. No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application?
Yes, I'd like to be heard. Chairman? I happened to have owned this property 60 years ago.
Excuse me.
Hello?
Let me have your name and address, please.
You don't know me?
I do, but we need it on the record.
Vito Poveromo, 152 Oakside Drive, Smithtown, New York.
Okay, raise your right hand.
Yes,
Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
I happen to have owned this land 60 years ago, and I
Use the mic.
subdivided it.
Use the
Can you-
mic for him.
You want me to talk into the mic?
Yes, please.
And when I subdivided this land, there was a 10-foot easement along the one sideline, and the planning board, upon me filing the map, insisted that he had another 10 feet, so it was a 20-foot easement. Now, the easement was so ridiculous. If you stand on the curb and you look up, you'd have to go up 15 feet within 4 feet to get onto this easement. And no one was ever used this easement when the map was originally filed under 288 of the town laws and open development in 1950, prior to 1953. But next door, my oldest brother Paul had the lot, and it's there to this day. And for 60 years that I know of, the Parks Department used the driveway to get to the cemetery. If you look at the map, there's a point that comes into the next door neighbor's lot. That driveway has been used for 60 years to get to the driveway, to get to the cemetery, to cut the lawns once a year, whenever they did. They probably had, very rarely has one visitor a year, and to cause a hardship on someone to have a beautiful backyard. This man's house is one of the most beautiful landscape, most beautiful houses in Smithtown. Everything is perfection plus. I notified the town attorney that they should buy what's known as adverse possession, because they've been using that driveway for 60 years, that they put the property owner next door on notice, and then you have a real easement to get to the cemetery where you can get with a truck, with lawnmowers and equipment. You can't get to the easement with the one you have on this map now. So I would say approve it, but work on getting the other method of getting to the cemetery. That's the right way.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
You know, that driveway is only like 25 feet from the property line, and it's been used for 60 years to maintain that cemetery.
Okay.
The town attorney can very easily put on notice and to the property owner that, being that we've maintained this for so many years, we want to put you on notice that we have the right to use your driveway to get to the cemetery. And then you really have an easement, and you have access to the cemetery. This other way is it's hodgepodge, and I think is ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else, gentlemen?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Ready, moved and second. All in favor? Aye. Yeah, this is what they're talking about, right here, right?
Yeah.
That's why I didn't file normally. I forgot Okay, the next case is an adjourned hearing, case 16,871. James Rosario, 7 Clarissa Lane, Commack, New York. Location, north side of Clarissa Lane, 189 feet east of Linda Lane, Commack. Property zoned R10. Request, special exception to permit temporary living quarters for a parent. Variance of a special exception standard to increase the maximum permitted floor area of living quarters from 600 square feet to 732 square feet. Reduce minimum rear yard from 50 feet to 41. Reduce minimum side yard from 12 feet to 8 feet. And total side yard from 28 to 22 feet for a proposed 604 square foot first floor addition. Reduce minimum front yard from 40 feet to 34 feet for a proposed
Is this it?
56 square foot portico.
Okay. I think that's what I gave out, okay. Hello. May I have your name, please?
Good evening. James Rosario, Rosario. I live at 7 Clarissa Lane, Commack, New York.
Raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Would you like this gentleman to speak for you?
Yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Michael Morbillo, architect and Spire Design Group, 1650 Sycamore Avenue, Bohemia, New York.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, the application before you this evening is for a parental living quarters special exception and also a rear yard, side yard, and front yard setback variance. I'll start with the front yard setback is for a front porch, an unenclosed front porch. We are reducing the setback from 40 feet to 34 feet for a 6-foot front porch. And the remainder of the application is related to an addition that is being proposed, approximately 520 square foot addition for parental living quarters. The total parental living quarters is not to exceed 732 square feet. That's part of our relaxation request also, as we're asking for an increase from 600 square feet maximum to 732 square feet. The part of the parental living quarters will also include a garage conversion. We are proposing or illustrating on our plan that should that garage need to be reconverted back, or the parental living quarters portion of the residence, which is now being proposed as a bedroom, could be converted back into a garage space should the need arise for a future owner. Primarily, the addition is to the east and to the north. We are proposing a relaxation of side yard setbacks from 12 feet to 8 feet. The property is tapered, so the setback at the rear portion of the addition will be a little bit over 10 feet, and towards the front, it'll be just a little bit over 8 feet. The requests that we're making, we are not substantial. Certainly, the request for the increase in the parental living quarters size is does not meet the requirements of the town, but we are looking to propose a reasonably sized apartment. And if the board or anybody has any questions this time, I'd be more than happy to answer them. And I'm sorry, just one last thing to add. We have reviewed the advisory report from planning staff. We also did meet with the planning staff a few weeks ago to discuss reducing our original request of a reduction of a rear yard setback from 50 to 41 feet. And with planning department or planning staff advisement, we've changed that request from 50 to 45-foot rear yard setback, thus reducing the request from about a 20% encroachment to about a 10% encroachment.
Okay. Planning?
Mr. Morbillo, I think, addressed the planning department's concerns for the most part. our main concern is whether or not this could be converted back, whether it was reasonable or, economical and practical to convert back when it's done. And I have to say, in all honesty, that I approved the memo in a hurry, and I see that we recommended a condition of approval that is sort of vague, because it says that it recommends that the design be modified so that it's part of the front part of the apartment could be readily converted back to a garage, and I think that wording is sort of vague, in whose opinion. I think Mr. Morbillo made a pretty decent presentation on that, but I think the condition could be troublesome to him or to his client if someone, you could just dispute. One says it is practical, another one says it's not. I would recommend that the board approve this either with a condition that's enforceable, like perhaps he give you a revised drawing, or if you're satisfied with what he said tonight, then there's no need for a condition. Did you follow what I meant? It's just the wording there is open to interpretation. And I apologize. I normally try to catch this stuff, but I know it's no excuse, but trying to cook a lot of things at the same time, some things burn.
Dave, is my assumption correct that the concern is that should a future applicant come back and request relief for a garage, like a detached garage in the future, that they would want to have it so that this could be converted back? Is that what we're trying to avoid, or is it
Partly,
something else?
yeah. I mean, obviously the planning department tries to think in the long run, and I think the board often does too, that while someone comes in today and they say, gee, I'll convert my garage to living space, well, what happens 20 years from now when these folks are selling the property and the new person wants the living space and a garage? Now there's a situation like there's no room to provide a garage anymore. So our recommendation over the past number of years is to make it so that it's not expensive to convert it to a garage.
So just to touch on that very briefly, what we're doing, and I have building elevations, the homeowners actually want to maintain the appearance of a garage on the front of the house. So they are actually enclosing the garage door and leaving it in place because they want to have that appearance on the front of the house. And the area that is being converted, primarily, should somebody want to convert it back, there would be minimal disruption of the parental living quarters, primarily the areas where we're putting in plumbing. There's a bathroom that's being proposed, and there's also a little bit of plumbing in the kitchen area. So in order to convert that back, those areas would be unaffected. It would actually be the removal of some closets, and I could submit, if you don't have a set of plans in front of you, the closets and a partition that's separating the bedroom from a hallway. It's pretty easily converted back, primarily because the addition is on a slab, and we're not proposing a crawl space or a basement over it, and that's an area that formerly was garage, so there'll be a slab underneath. So, it is a tough request to make. I don't know what the trigger is to say that, my client did have concerns that they're going to be asked to convert this back at a certain time in the future, but I think that I saw it from the standpoint that should somebody in the future who wants to have a garage back, they're not going to place a burdensome request on this board to ask for a detached structure somewhere on this property. So if somebody did want to convert it back, I understand it's a gray area. I just want to say that the design does happen to address that, whether coincidentally or not. I think it's there for a future owner to be able to convert it back, although I don't know the mechanism for enforcing that condition.
I understand. The idea, I had focused on the garage, but I believe that the town board, when they first adopted this ordinance, was concerned about the town changing slowly over the course of time from a one-family home, predominantly a one-family home community, to a two-family home community. And that's why the wording was put in there, because it's one of those things like if a couple of dozen get approved every year and they're never practical to convert back, slowly but surely the population density increases, the demand for public services increases, the stress on the groundwater increases, and so on. parking cars in the front yard. Even when you have a one-family home, you know, how many people have 4 cars?
Yes.
Well, if you have 2 families permanently, what do you need, 8 cars in front of a house? So the planning on the town board's part was to basically accommodate people who need a place for a family member to live. The town board, I think, recognized that it's expensive to live in Smithtown and not everybody can afford to live here on a fixed income. So they wanted to make that accommodation, but they didn't want it to be permanent.
Sure.
Okay. Gentlemen, any other questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Ready, move in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
The next case is 16879, Mark Wolf, 135 Adams Avenue, Hauppauge, New York. Location, northeast corner of Suffolk Court and Adams Avenue, Hauppauge. Property zoned LI. Request variance to reduce minimum required parking from 231 to 198 spaces. Reduce minimum parking setback from 50 feet to 7 feet for a proposed parking area expansion. Incidentally, that's parking setback in the front yard. Permit more than 20 parking stalls in a row without a landscape island, and reduce front yard landscape area from 80% to 54%.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Garrett Gray, Weber Law Group, 290 Broad Hollow Road, Melville, New York, for the applicant. I know it's getting late, so I will be quick. This board has been kind enough to grant 2 prior variances to the applicant, both to reduce parking, which was in connection with building expansion, not to add any more workable space, but to add dead storage file space, because my client is required by law to maintain certain files for 10 years. Contract Pharmacal was one of the first buildings in this industrial park, having moved there in the late 1970s. It was also one of the original IDAs done in this industrial park. The variance that we seek today is necessary as there is a need for additional parking on the site. I am pleased to say, however, that the variances that we originally applied for are not the same variances that we seek tonight, as the variances we seek tonight are much less substantial than originally requested, thanks in part to the planning department, who redesigned the entire application and actually made it a lot more functional. This plan was the original.
Take the mic in.
For television, you have to use the mic.
Oh. This plan was the original plan. Hello? Can you hear me? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This plan was the original plan that we had submitted, which envisioned all additional parking along Suffolk Court right here. That would have ended up, and this property obviously has 2 front yards, one on Adams, one on Suffolk. This would have ended up with only a 7-foot setback at its shortest part. Also, this would have envisioned a severe reduction in landscape area from 92% to 54%. Additionally, this would, and a 7-foot, as I said, parking setback. The newly designed request seeks expansion of the parking area that's already existing on Adams Avenue, and just adding a few spots on Suffolk Court. What this does is this allows for a parking setback of 20 feet along Suffolk and 32 feet along Adams, as opposed to the 7-foot originally requested. It will reduce landscaping from 92% on Adams to 82% along Suffolk and 78% along Adams, where it would have been 54% under the original plan. And the number of additional stalls has been reduced from 28 for the original plan to 25 to the new plan. It really does not result in any undesirable change in the neighborhood. It's basically an expansion a small expansion of an existing parking lot, the benefit obviously can be achieved by other means, as the planning department has discerned from our original plan, and I don't think it can get much better. The requested area variances, I would posit, are not substantial at all anymore. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood or district, I would say that they would have a positive effect. At present, people have been parking, just to show the old plan, have been parking along this wall here and this entrance here. Having visited the site, backing out of these spots with these cars parking here is a danger unto itself. And it gets very narrow, especially if trucks are coming in. So this is a much safer solution. So, as far as the parking variance to reduce the minimum required parking from 231 to 198, I don't think, this was a variance that the planning department or the ZBA said we needed. I personally don't think we need it, as we already have a variance to go down to 171. So you don't need a variance to increase a variance, but I'll leave that to you. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, Dave?
I don't know why they need a variance to provide more parking either, but we recommend approval. From what we're told from businesses in the Hop Hog Industrial Park, that high aesthetic standards are really important for attracting the best quality businesses to go there. And yet, on the other hand, you want to make sure that the standards are not so high that they chase businesses out. And I think this meets that. I think I would recommend perhaps a little buffer planting around the parking that encroaches in the front yard, but I think this hopefully helps the business and will still keep the industrial park an appealing place for businesses.
They're very happy in the industrial park. They don't want to go anywhere but where they are now.
The company contract pharmacology?
Yes.
That's really good to hear.
Okay. Gentlemen, any questions?
What's the total number of parking spaces that you're going to ultimately wind up with?
It's now going to be 171 and 25, 198. No, 196.
196?
196.
Thank you. How does that work with our advertisement? Does it matter?
I don't think it matters.
And would the reduce the front yard landscaping from 80% to 54, that's changing, right?
78
To 78.
and 50 feet to 7. 7 to 20, 50 to 20.
Correct.
Good. Okay, thank you so much. Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Ready, move the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried.
And the final case of the night, number 16,885, is 55 Southern Boulevard LLC. 55 Southern Boulevard, Nesconset, New York. Location, east side of Southern Boulevard, 1,153 feet south of Middle Country Road, Nesconset. Property zoned LI. Request variance to reduce minimum lot area from 87,120 square feet to 80,720 square feet due to environmentally sensitive land, that is slopes in excess of 15%.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. Vincent Pizzulli, attorney for the applicant, with offices at the Omni Building in Uniondale, New York. I apologize, I dropped my affidavit, so I have to put it back together. You know, when you're dead last on the calendar, sometimes you start to notice things that you never noticed before. If anybody wants a Snickers bar or M&Ms, buy it from the candy machine on the left, because it's 10 cents cheaper than the candy machine on the right. I'm here before you tonight, Madam Chairwoman, on an application that originated with the Planning Board. What we're proposing is a two-lot subdivision of the subject premises, which is located at 55 Southern Boulevard in Wisconsin. The property is currently used for medical offices by my client, Dr. Richard Sabinski, who is the principal of 55 Southern Boulevard, LLC. The subject property is 2 acres in size, and it is zoned LI. We're proposing to subdivide it into 2 roughly 1-acre lots as a planned industrial park under the town code. When the application was first submitted, we neglected, when we means both the applicant and the planning department, neglected to notice that there's approximately 6,400 square feet of steep slopes in the northeast corner of the subject property. By code, when you calculate buildable lot area, you have to take into account the amount of environmentally sensitive lands. As a result, it reduced the buildable lot area from 2 acres overall to roughly 80,700 and some odd square feet. Hence, the need for a variance from this board.
Yeah. Just open up the- Bill.
On March 6th, at a hearing before the planning board heard our request for a variance and made the required recommendation under the town law to the zoning board, and they, in fact, recommended that this board grant the variance request. I'm going to go through the variance criteria, and if you have any questions, please interrupt me. While the variance request involves environmentally sensitive land, the area itself of the environmentally sensitive land is small and could easily be avoided when the surrounding property is developed. And what I mean by that is if you look at the map, it's at the northeast corner where the property borders the Cider Lumberyard property. That area of the property will probably be avoided when construction plans are proposed because it'll be a side yard and a rear yard setback area. And the developer will not want to incur additional expense to regrade that portion of the site. So in the future, it's very likely to expect that a medical office building or something of that nature will be sited away from the steep slope area, and the new parking would be located closer to the existing parking on the other side of the property. The variance is not substantial in that the actual size of the property is 2 acres, which conforms with the requirements of the light industrial district. The only way to subdivide this property is by the grant of this variance, so there are no feasible alternatives to the applicant. While the variance involves environmentally sensitive land, it will not have an adverse effect on the environment because this area is small in nature and can be worked around with development plans. And the difficulty was not created, it's due to the existing topographical condition. That's our presentation. If you have any questions, please let me know. I think the request overall is very minor in nature. We anticipate a medical office building going on this property to mirror the medical office building on the other side.
Planning?
I just want to explain this a little bit. Mr. Pizzulli touched on it. You don't get this kind of application very often. It's a pending subdivision. Most applications that you get, someone was denied a building permit, or maybe they have a pending site plan or special exception. When there's a pending subdivision, under New York state laws, planning boards normally don't have the authority to approve a subdivision except in compliance with the zoning ordinance, unless it's a cluster development. In the Smithtown Town Code, there are certain provisions in the subdivision regulations and the zoning ordinance that give the planning board authority in certain circumstances to grant variances. But the planning board, the building department, and the planning department have concluded, and they've been operating for years under the concept, for about 12 years, under the concept that the planning board does not have jurisdiction to grant variances for environmentally sensitive land. Also, they don't have the power to increase density. So since this deals with environmentally sensitive land, is the reason the planning board can't grant the variances on their own. They refer it to you, and just as a reminder, because you don't get this often, you are not free to act on it until you get a recommendation, till you request a recommendation from the planning board. They've already made a recommendation.
They did.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put it in context. 99% of the applications you get over the course of a year are not like this. The planning department recommends approval.
Another benefit to being less than a counter is I get to listen to David give me history on the zoning in this town, which is really quite informative. Thank you.
Okay. Gentlemen, any other questions? No questions. Okay. Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Come on up. May I have your name, please?
Maureen McCarthy,
And your address, Maureen?
65 Southern Boulevard, Nesconset.
Okay, raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. I'm here because I received a certified letter stating that I reside within 200 feet of the applicant's property. I have resided in Nesconset since birth and for 36 years on Southern Boulevard. I am intimately familiar with the area and its history. I recall when engineer Donnelly built the applicant's large office building. This area is 2-acre zoning, and the woodlands located to the north side of the office with environmentally sensitive slopes were left in their original form intentionally. The cash-in design report ordered by the town of Smithtown described the 40 different tree, plant species, and animals that reside on Southern Boulevard. They described this area as, open quotation, oak-dominated pine barrens, close quotation. I had the occasion to review the applicant's environmental assessment form received by the Town of Smithtown Planning and Community Development Department on November 2nd, 2012. I would like to mention that B, 2, C, and D are not correct. It fails to accurately classify the zoning, which is mostly LI, and omits most of the residential homes. This is not the first applicant that has listed me as vacant. The applicants and their attorneys routinely fail to mention the 8 residential homes that surround them. Number 6 fails to mention the 3-acre dump that existed next to their property for years. Photographs do exist, but I do believe some of the employees from the planning department will recall such. Mountains of grass, trees, construction materials, asphalt, concrete, garbage, furniture, and chemicals were previously deposited there. They have since built medical offices on that ground. Number 6 also fails to mention the former Smithtown dump that existed off of Jericho Turnpike just to their west. It is disappointing that the applicant and his attorney reside in St. James, where they enjoy a minimum of 2-acre zoning, that they want a subdivision and variance for a 1.96-acre plot with environmentally sensitive land. Superstorm Sandy recently demonstrated the results of allowing overbuilding and building on environmentally sensitive land. This area is zoned for 2 acres. Call it a planned industrial park, planning industrial park, or whatever creative and clever terminology you want. There is an industrial park in Smithtown on hundreds of acres with countless vacancies. Southern Boulevard is not an industrial park. It is a mix of residential homes and now medical offices and specific businesses that have been granted zone changes and variances. Most of the residential homes on Southern Boulevard and Nuslow Drive maintain private wells. The cash-in design report, substantiated by Suffolk County Police Department reports, emphasized the high rate of accidents at the Southern Boulevard and Route 347 intersection. It further stated that, open quotation, The Route 25 and Southern Boulevard intersection is critical to the ability of Southern Boulevard to carry the projected traffic volumes. This intersection forms an offset intersection with Arlington Avenue, providing storage for only 2 Southern Boulevard northbound cars turning left to proceed westbound along Route 25. Close quotation. They concluded by stating, open quotation, "It is a short-sighted to encourage traffic to Southern Boulevard without addressing these critical constraints," close quotation. I attended the lumber yard meeting where the plan for a road from Southern Boulevard to Route 25 was discussed. 2 roads carrying traffic to Route 25, a short distance from each other, seems like a disaster waiting to happen. Currently, you have tractor trailers carrying lumber, pipes, tanks, etc., along with cars entering and exiting the medical offices. Many of these people are very sick. They are in wheelchairs and crutches exiting private vehicles. Others are transported by ambulance. The Suffolk County Police Department and ambulance is called every week to transport a critically ill person to the hospital. You have already created a very dangerous traffic situation. There will soon be a fatality. The residential homes are the only ones that generate no traffic and provide relief from the other uses. Despite residing quietly in our homes for decades, we are still harassed by some of our business counterparts. They feel empowered by the favors you grant them and off-the-cuff comments. A good public servant serves the community and does what is best for them. I rearrange my life and work schedule in order to attend these meetings in hope of some positive outcome. Perhaps you can address the code as it pertains to illuminated signage and lighting at night. Better yet, drive down Southern Boulevard when you leave this meeting and see if there is compliance. In conclusion, granting of a variance of building on a 1-acre plot with environmentally sensitive land on Southern Boulevard should be denied.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come up, please. May I have your name, please?
Good evening, everyone. My name's Edward Morrow.
Say your last name.
Morrow, M-A-U-R-O.
You can lift that mic up for you.
And
your address?
35 Neslo Drive,
Okay.
Nesconset, New York.
All right, raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Basically, I have a letter here that was mailed from my neighbors that could not attend this meeting yesterday to the clerk of the court in Smithtown, and they just asked me to do them the favor to bring this letter to you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Unless you have any other questions for me.
No, I'm good, thank you. Okay. Is there anything?
I apologize.
Okay.
Is that a letter of objection, just out of curiosity? I
That
didn't see
is.
it. Okay. I just wanted to, not to belabor the board and protract the hearing, just want to clarify a couple of things. Mainly my client. My client purchased this property from Mr. Donnelly. This used to be an office building for Mr. Donnelly until 2004 or thereabouts. My client, Dr. Sabinski, purchased the property and the building, converted the engineering office building into a medical office building. It is only 5,800 square feet. It's a very small medical office building. If you look at the aerial photos of the area, you'll see that there is a new medical office park that developed immediately to the south of this property, and that may be what, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, may have been attesting to. The property is 2 acres in size. We're not pulling any terminology tricks. It qualifies as a planned industrial park under the code. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been here tonight. The first application that my client ever made to the town of Smithtown was to the planning board, and the hearing was held in January of this year. He's never been before this board seeking variances or any other type of relief. So with that, I say good night and thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Really moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you so much. That concludes our hearings for tonight.